Yeah, I was there on that platform when Jim's word, I think it was only last year, well now it'd be year before last, that we were talking. That was the white fellow who was, beaten over and over again. He was knocked out the first time they hit him. He didn't know that they picked him up 5 times and knocked him over that rail 5 times. I was there on the platform. I was there when John Lewis was hit by a Coca-Cola crate. The thing that caused the scars in his head was that metal strip around the Coca-Cola crate rather than the wooden crate. That's the thing that tore his head open, okay? Now, I was there. I only got 3 cracked ribs, okay, because they were trying to kick me in a particular place. And I went down to protect myself, and when I bent over, I got ribs hit rather than something else. But nothing you can do with cracked ribs, so they took me to the doctor, and I went through the rest of the freedom ride with cracked ribs, okay? But there was no blood, no whatever. They tried to push me backwards over a rail. There was a deep drop off. And I decided rather than to stand there and let them push me over backwards, I turned around and jumped over. And I think 2 others jumped over with me. And we were able to survive so we could continue the freedom rides. Okay? All right. Now, the short response to your question, I have a long one and a short one, as you notice. Something like that. We had already decided that we were going to give our lives to this cause. Stayed up all night, praying over it, discussing it before we left. So when we got to that moment of truth, they couldn't take our lives. How are you going to take something that somebody's already given? That's why you saw us behave the way we did. You'd already given it. So when they came, it was too late. That's the thing that helped us to continue to move forward and to continue the ride.
But was it because of the FBI that the concentration was so heavy in Montgomery at that bus station, that they had a plant in the Ku Klux Klan?
In Alabama, you have one set of mores, and in Mississippi you have another. They're both in the South, and they're twins, states. But Mississippi is more like a police state. If you look at the people who were shot and killed and assassinated, they were, many of them, most of them were killed by elected officials. Medgar Evers, Byron Beckwith was a state legislator. Okay. Herbert Lee was killed in Liberty, Mississippi, a state legislator. Okay. You go down the list. All right. Now there was some law enforcement that killed people in Alabama, but in a consistent basis, Mississippi was considered a police state. Okay? Alabama was more of a populous state. All right? In other words, they believe in a lot of participation. Like when I went to Selma, Alabama, I have a book out. Is that the flyer? You got it? Okay, you can get a copy of that flyer. The book gives basically some lessons in terms of how we got into Selma, Alabama, and the strategy that was used. Because 2 other groups from SNCC had gone in, and they came back to Atlanta and said, we can't accomplish anything in South Alabama because the white folks are too mean. The white folks, and then the black folks were too scared. They put an X on Selma, Alabama. It wasn't supposed to happen. Then they asked me if I wanted to go. I said no. No, they asked me if I wanted to go check it out. And I said, no, I will take it. That's how the Selma Movement got started. It's all in the book, okay? So my point is that this kind of behavior has a history to it. And I had to detail and study why people behaved the way they did. And once we understood the mentality, all right, and I'll do more in the workshop, but I'll give you one clue. Like most people don't know, okay, like I sat around and I started listening to white folks talk, okay, after I did my research. My first research, when they asked me if I wanted to go take it, I did, was to research the libraries where I could find information on mean white folk. And what I did was, I started checking out all these libraries, and you know what library I found? It was the Tuskegee. It's called Gandhian Institute back in that day. They had a publication on the White Citizens Council, a monthly publication. That was the only library I could go to, you know, in the day. So I found the library first. And there was a guy named Ralph. Oh my goodness, I said I wasn't going to forget his name again. He wrote a book called 100 Years of Lynching. 100 Years of Lynching. First name is Ralph. Oh, somebody look it up before I finish. We were in the same stacks, looking at newspaper clippings and history and that kind of stuff, etc. So my point I'm making is that you have to study the history in order to understand the personality of certain communities. There are some particular mores about Rochester, okay? And some of the folks who lived in Rochester all their lives and everything else, and somebody come in the community, and they start talking to them, they say, well, you must not be from around here. Because they have personalities. Communities have personalities, okay? Like people don't know, these folks were talking about, the white folks now, those dirty politicians stole our capital. Stole their capital? You're talking about stealing some money? Politicians stealing money? No. They were talking about the state capitol. It used to be right there in Dallas County, in a place called Cahaba, which you've never heard of. That used to be the state capital of Alabama. Had a flood and they moved it down up there to Montgomery, and these folks were still angry with the rest of the white folks in Alabama for stealing their capital. You see my point? You have to research and you have to listen. Cahaba was supposed to have been the capital. Now, they had it for 1 year in Tuscaloosa, you know, but that's my point. You need to understand. Now, I'm wrapping up. Why is it that in Montgomery, Alabama, they bombed Martin Luther King's house? This is in Alabama now. They bombed Abernathy's church. They bombed other folks' homes. In Birmingham, they bombed so many places, they call it Birmingham. Okay? Ralph Ginsburg. Ralph Ginsburg from New York. 100 Years of Lynching. We were in the same stacks. Okay? When he found something I was interested in Dallas County, he gave it to me, and I gave it to him. He had a huge camera, and he was going around taking photos of newspaper clippings of lynchings. And that's what his book is about, 100 Years of Lynching. All right? So here we find that they bombed Birmingham, and they bombed the motel that Martin Luther King was staying in. They bombed the church. You know that. They bombed all those places. Guess what? No bomb in Selma. Is it because they didn't know about dynamite? I know. Why? I also know why more white people were killed in the Selma movement than any other movement. Rosa, Reverend Reeves, Johnson Daniels, only one black was killed in Marion, Alabama. That was the thing that kicked off the march. The rest of them were white. I know. I just don't have time right now. Told me this last question. I have to do what the lady said do. I'll be around. Okay.